Okay, the goal of this video is to do a couple of examples, and then at the end, in your own words, you'll be able to describe the difference between APR and APY. Okay, so what we're going to do first is assume a 1-year CD, certificate of deposit, so a savings account basically, where you promise not to take the money out until the year is done, otherwise pay big fines. So assume a 1-year CD purchased for $1,000 pays an APR of 8% that is compounded quarterly. How much interest does the account earn in each compounding period? And does the interest earned increase over each period, and why, right? So what we're going to do is realize that this is compounding quarterly, so we're going to look at the end of each quarter. Okay, so we'll start with quarter 1, or 3 months, and we'll calculate the balance in the account and then look at the interest gained. Okay, so in order to calculate the balance, we have to think about what interest rate we're going to use, because 8% is annual percentage in rate. Okay, that's the rate you would use if you were compounding annually. But to compound quarterly, you have to take the APR and turn it into a quarterly interest rate. Okay, so what we need is a special quarterly interest rate, which is the annual percentage rate divided by, and if you look at your formula, I'm trying to remind you guys about this, that for monthly compounding you've got a monthly interest rate, which is APR divided by 12. For quarterly it's APR divided by 4, right, because it's 4 times per year. So we've got to take the APR of 8% and divide it by 4. So you can do this, you can go 8% divided by 4, and what does that give us? 8 over 4 is 2, so that's 2%. And what's 2% as a decimal? 2% is not 2, just so you know. It's not 2. 2% is 2 divided by 100. Okay, it's 2 per 100. And that is 0.02, which is a completely different thing than 2. So 2% is 0.02. Okay, so the quarterly interest rate is 2%. So we're going to get 2% added on each quarter. So at the end of quarter 1, we take our $1,000 and we multiply that by 1 plus 0.02. So we get the 1,000 back and 2% added on. So obviously we'll calculate this for fun. 1,000 times 1 is 1,000. 1,000 times 0.02 is 1,000 times 0.02 is 20. Okay, so we get $1,000 plus 20, or $1,020, right, after quarter 1. And what's the interest earned there? Well, the interest we have gained is $20, right? Now after quarter 2, we take our $1,020 from quarter 1 and we times that by 1 plus 0.02. So we have, after quarter 2, we multiply, so we have our 1,020 plus 2% of 1,020. Okay, what does that make? $20.4, okay, or $20.40. So at the end of quarter 2, we have $1,040.40 and the interest we have added on in this quarter is in fact $20.40, right? At the end of quarter 3, we take our $1,040.40 and multiply that by 1 plus 0.02. So we have the same money plus 2% of that, right? So we have our $1,040.40 plus so 2081 about, right? Okay. So well, let me put it this way. Let's just keep this the same as the last table. I'll just put $40.40 there for interest, and here I've earned $1,060.81. So I'll just say okay, the interest earned to this point is $60.81. But I hope it's clear that the extra interest here was $20.40. The extra interest going from quarter 2 to quarter 3 was in fact $20 and oh, I made a mistake there, of course. This should be 21, sorry. And of course I can check that by the formula, but this should be an extra, so this should be, sorry, 61.21, so an extra $20.81, right? And then after quarter 4, we're taking our $1,061.21 and multiply that by 1 plus 0.02, which gives the $1,061.21 plus 2% of that, which is $21.22. Okay, so our total amount, of course, is that plus 1061.21, which is 1082.43. Okay, so the interest we have after quarter 4 is $82.43, and that's an extra $21.22. Okay, so the point is, and let's see, we'll just answer these questions again. So how much interest does the account earn in each compounding period? This is how much it earns, after each, and in the first period it's $20, in the second period it's $20.40, in the third period it's $20.81, in the fourth quarter it's $21.22. Okay, so we've done that one. Does the interest earned increase over each period? Yes, it does. Why does the interest earned increase over each period? Why don't we just keep earning $20 extra interest? Why do we earn 20 and then 20.40, then 20.81, then 21.22? What's going on there? Okay, this is what we've got to understand. Why is the interest earned during each period increasing? Can you explain that in your own words? This is why we bother with the calculations, just so we actually understand this, and this will help us to understand the difference between, understand what APY is, right? And APR. So basically in the second period we added on, so in the first quarter we earned $20 interest. Then we added that to the principal to get 10.20, and then we got interest on top of that. So the $20.40, this 40 cents, if you just look at that 40 cents, is in fact interest on top of interest. It's 2% of $20. 2% of $20 is 40 cents. Okay? So when you earn interest on top of interest, that's why your amount of interest each period increases. Okay, and that's what compound interest means. You're earning interest on top of interest. Okay, so does the interest earned increase over each period? Yes. Why? Because we're earning interest on top of interest. And you could use your own words if you like. We're earning interest on interest, basically, right? That's what compound interest means. How much total interest does this earn in 1 year? How much total interest does the CD earn in 1 year? Total interest, money-wise, $82.43, right? Because it started at 1,000 and it became 1,082.43. Okay. What's the annual percentage yield? Now, just before we get to that, I just want to quickly check one of these balances with a formula. So, if we take quarter 4, we would take our principal 1,000 times that Y1 plus 0.02. That's the quarterly interest rate of 2%, and then we would put that to the power of 4. We would compound it 4 times, and that is 1082.43. Okay, $1,082.43. So the formula way to do this is 1,000 times 1 plus 0.02 to the power of 4. That's interest compounded quarterly, right? So just to check. So what's the annual percentage yield? Give the annual percentage yield as a percentage rounded to 3 decimal places. The annual percentage yield is the interest earned, the percentage of interest earned out of the principal. So the annual percentage yield is going to be interest earned over the start of the balance at the start of the year. Okay. So in this case, it's the principal. So how much interest did we earn? We earned $82.43, and the principal at the start of the year was $1,000, right? And plug that in a calculator, and what do you get? 0.08243, and write that as a percentage to 3 decimal places. What do you get? Well, as a percentage, the decimal point moves over 1-2 spaces, and that becomes 8.243%. Okay? So the APY is that. This is our APY, and that is more than the annual percentage rate, which was 8% or 8.000% if you want a direct comparison. Does that make sense? The annual percentage yield is 8.243%, which is more than the annual percentage rate of 8%. What's the difference? Annual percentage rate is just the number we use to calculate the interest rate we're going to need. Like, we use 8%, so we can calculate 2%, and that's the important. Our interest rate really is 2% each quarter. That's our interest rate. It's a quarterly interest rate of 2%. And after the entire year, we've shown that we get $82.43, which is 8.243% of the $1,000 we began with. Okay, so basically the APR is a useless number in this case. I mean, if you were told by the bank that, hey, your annual percentage yield is 8.243%, that's all you want to know, because that tells you the percentage you're going to get at the end of the year. This is the exact percentage you're going to get at the end of the year. If they told you that up front, you could just go, okay, I'm going to invest $1,000, so that means you're going to give me 8.243% of $1,000, which is what? 0.08243 times 1,000, which is what? Look at that in the calculator. You're going to give me $82.43 in interest at the end of the year. Okay? Or if they told you, okay, the annual percentage yield is 8.243%, and you invest $5,000, how much interest would they give you at the end of the year? Again, they would give you 8.243% of $1,000, which is 0.08243 times 5,000, right? Which is $412.15. So we can use the annual percentage yield to quickly calculate the interest we're going to get at the end of the year. That's all we need to know, right? No need for compounding. Okay. So is the APY greater than the APR? Yes, the APY is greater than the APR. Why? Can you answer this in your own words? Why is the annual percentage yield greater than the annual percentage rate of 8%? In your own words, press pause and think about it. Well, because compounding occurred during the year, right? We had compounding during the year, which gave interest on top of interest, which gave us more interest than just 8%. It gave us 8.243%, right? So going to the next page, if interest had been compounded annually, how much total interest would the CD have earned? And what would the APY have been? So press pause and do that one, please. If interest was just compounded annually, how much total interest would the CD have earned? Okay, I hope you've tried it. I'll do it now. So you take your $1,000, multiplied by 1 plus r to the power of t, and if it's annual compound interest, what's r equal to? Well, r is just, it's going to be compounded once per year, so it's just 8%, right? Or 0.08. And t, of course, is 1, because we're just going to, it's a 1 year CD, so we're just going to compound interest one time, so it's just 1,000 times 1 plus 0.08, which gives 1,080. So how much total interest would the CD have earned? $80. Not $82.43, which occurred from the quarterly compounding, right? What would the annual percentage yield have been in this case? What do you think? Press pause and do that one. Well, again, the APY would be the interest earned over the principal invested, or the balance at the start of the year, which is $80 earned, $1,000 at the start of the year. What does that give us? 8 over 100, right? Or 0.08, or as a percentage, 8%, right? So the APY would have been 8%. So that's the annual percentage yield. And isn't that equal to the APR? Okay. Which of course is 8%. So if we have annual compound interest, the annual percentage yield equals the annual percentage rate, because you're just compounding at the end of the year, right? So on question 4, assume a 1-year CD purchase for $1,000 pays an APR of 8% that is compounded monthly. How much is in the account at the end of 1 year? Press pause and calculate that. Use the compound interest formula that you're given on the formula sheet. Okay, have you got it? I'm going to do it now. So you're going to take your $1,000, you're going to compound it monthly. So it's going to be 1,000, the principal, times 1 plus the rate to the power of t. Now what's the rate? Because what we need in here is a monthly interest rate. Which is going to be the annual percentage rate divided by 12, right? Because it's monthly compounding. Now APR is 8%, or 0.08. Divide that by 12 and what do you get? Zero point zero zero 6666667, etc. Right? So we can put that in 0.00666667. Whoops, 7 to the power of t. What's t? If we're compounding monthly for how many years? 1 year. So it's just 1 year, and then it's 12 times in that year, right? So t is going to be power of 12. So we just use the compound interest formula like that and calculate that. I can do 1.00666667 to the power of 12, and I should get $182.99999. So if I round that to the nearest cent, what does that give me? Round that to the nearest cent. 1082.9995 blah 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 is approximately, if you round this 9 up, okay, then this becomes a 10, and this becomes a 10, and then that becomes a 3, right? 83.00. So it's $1,083, right? So how much is in the account at the end of 1 year? $1,083. How much total interest does it earn? $83. What's the annual percentage yield? Give APY as a percentage rounded to 3 decimal places. Press pause and do that one. What's the annual percentage yield? Okay, I'll do it now. To get the annual percentage yield, you take the interest earned and divide that by what you began with, the principal, let's say, or what was in the account at the start of the year. So you get the interest earned as a percentage of what was in there at the beginning. So $83 out of 1,000, which is 0.083, which is, as a percentage, turn that into a percent. Move the decimal point 2 spaces to the right, and that's 8.3%, right? Or to 3 decimal places, you could say 8.300%, right? So the APY is 8.300% or 8.3%, same thing, right? And let's compare that to what we got earlier with interest compounded quarterly, which is what began with compounded quarterly. Our annual percentage yield was 8.243%. Okay, then when we compounded monthly, we got 8.300%, right? Which is more than that, because so basically, if you compound monthly, you're going to get a little bit more interest, which is what we did. We got $83, not just $82.43. So when we compounded each month, we got a little bit more interest, and so our annual percentage yield, of course, is more. It's 8.3%. That's showing that we're going to get more interest, right? But compounded monthly rather than quarterly. And of course, when we just compounded annually, we only got 8%, right? So we just got $80, which is 8%, right? So in your own words, what is APR and what is APY? So in my words, how I like to remember it is I just say the annual percentage rate is simply a number used to, you could say a number used to calculate the monthly interest rate, basically. and then you need the monthly interest rate to actually get the answer. Or sometimes it'll be a quarterly interest rate, or a weekly interest rate, or a semi-annual interest rate, or whatever. So the APR is just the number that you use to calculate the interest rate that you actually need. Okay. Whereas annual percentage yield is what? Annual percentage yield gives you the actual percentage interest earned in 1 year, or the actual interest percentage interest earned in 1 year, right?